Human imagination has always populated the absolute bottom of the ocean with ancient monsters and leviathans. But the true nature of the planet's darkest trenches is far harsher. When you cross the invisible mark of 8,400 meters, the ocean becomes completely empty for vertebrates. Below this depth, you will not find a single fish anywhere in the world. Not one. This is not a matter of the absence of light, a lack of food, or a shortage of oxygen. It is an insurmountable wall built by biochemistry itself. At these depths, the hydrostatic pressure is so colossal that it deforms the very structure of liquid water. It ceases to be a source of life and turns into a weapon. Water under pressure breaks hydrogen bonds and forcibly penetrates proteins, stopping all vital processes inside cells. An ordinary fish would instantly disintegrate here. To survive, deep-sea fish are forced to use the only protection available. They fill their cells with a chemical chaperone, a substance called trimethylamine N-oxide, TMAO. This chemical compound works like a molecular anchor. It prevents proteins from collapsing, counteracting the crushing pressure of the ocean. The rule of the abyss is mathematically brutal. The deeper you descend, the more TMAO you must accumulate in your tissues. But this chemical armor has its own fatal boundary, a physiological limit that turns the absolute bottom of the ocean into a zone of death. And it is this boundary that kills those who try to descend even deeper. To understand why fish dissolve, we need to look at their internal chemistry. Most shallow water marine fish have an osmolality, the concentration of dissolved substances, of around 350 milliosmoles per kilogram, whereas the ocean water around them is far denser and saltier at around 1,100 milliosmoles. Fish are constantly fighting against this gradient so that the water does not drain every vital fluid from them. But during the descent into the abyss, this dynamic changes so radically that it becomes dangerous. To prevent water under colossal pressure from tearing their proteins apart, deep-sea fish are forced to continuously fill their cells with trimethylamine N-oxide, TMAO. Evolution has even duplicated and modified a special gene, FMO3A, in their DNA, turning the livers of these creatures into uninterrupted factories for synthesizing this chemical anchor. In the snailfish, Pseudoliparis kermodicensis, caught at a depth of 7,000 meters, TMAO levels reach record values, artificially raising the internal concentration of substances to 991 milliosmoles. They have almost become equal to the ocean. And this is where the deadly trap lies. We proceed deeper. 8,200, 8,400 meters. At this boundary, the mathematics of survival suffers a fatal failure. The amount of TMAO required to protect cells from pressure at such a depth becomes so colossal that the fish's internal fluid fully equalises in concentration with the surrounding ocean, reaching 1,100 milliosmoles. The fish becomes iso-osmotic. What happens if it descends even 100 meters lower? To resist the pressure, it would have to accumulate even more TMAO. Its cells would become hyperosmotic, more concentrated than the ocean itself. But to survive in such a state, the fish would have to break millions of years of its own evolution. Its kidneys and gills would have to instantly begin working in reverse, as they do in freshwater fish that filter out excess water. For the physiology of a marine fish, this is impossible to do on the fly. It is an absolute biochemical dead end. If a vertebrate crosses the 8,400-meter mark, it faces a brutal verdict. Either water will tear its proteins apart because of insufficient TMAO, or an excess of the chemical and disrupted osmotic pressure will simply destroy its cells from within. Flesh and blood cannot withstand it. The fish literally disintegrates into cellular slime. But there are those that have come right up to this wall. Those that live on the edge of disintegration and have been forced to sacrifice their own bones, skin color, and even skull in order not to be crushed. Those that have come closest to the deadly biochemical boundary at 8,400 meters do not resemble armored leviathans at all. Meet the Mariana snailfish, the supreme predator of the Challenger Deep, which lives at depths of more than 7,000 meters. To survive under pressure 1,000 times greater than atmospheric pressure, evolution forced it to literally dismantle its own anatomy, piece by piece. How exactly does it avoid breaking beneath the weight of the ocean? First, its bones simply refused to harden. This snailfish's genome contains a fatal mutation, a defect in the bglap gene, osteocalcin, which is responsible for tissue calcification. Its skeleton is mostly soft cartilage. But the most terrifying thing is that its skull never closes completely. It is an open system, created specifically so that the internal and external water pressure can equalize. If its skull were solid, like ours, its brain would simply be crushed. Second, the cell membranes. Under colossal pressure, ordinary fats harden, turning into wax, which would bring all cellular functions to a halt. To prevent its cells from freezing rigid, the Mariana snailfish duplicated specific genes in its genome. It has as many as 15 copies of the ACAA1 gene, whereas ordinary fish have only 5. This anomaly allows it to mass-produce polyunsaturated fatty acids, DHA, which keep its membranes in a fluid, flexible state, even under extreme pressure. But even that is not enough. To prevent its proteins from being torn apart by water, the snailfish's liver works like a hypertrophied chemical factory. Thanks to an increased number of promoters, the FMO3A gene continuously pumps enormous doses of life-saving trimethylamine N-oxide, TMAO, into its tissues. At the same time, another critically important gene, HSP90, a chaperone protein responsible for the correct folding of other proteins, acquired a unique point mutation, the replacement of alanine with serine. This tiny change near the ATP binding region works like a molecular lock, fixing proteins in place and preventing them from collapsing under the crushing weight of the water. This creature has sacrificed almost everything. The snailfish has completely lost the pigmentation gene MC1R, becoming a semi-transparent ghost. It has lost almost all of its vision genes, turning into an utterly blind wanderer of the darkness. Blind, soft, with an open skull. But it is alive. But what happens where even this perverse anatomy cannot save you? What do you do when the water itself becomes so aggressive that it tries to dissolve your shell alive, even before you touch the bottom? We have left vertebrates far behind. At the very bottom of the Mariana Trench, there are no fish, but a new enemy awaits us, one even more insidious than hydrostatic pressure. Here, the water itself turns into a weapon. The ocean is not merely a salty liquid. At depths greater than 4,000 to 5,000 meters lies an invisible boundary known as the carbonate compensation depth, or CCD. Below this point, because of colossal pressure, falling temperature, and a higher concentration of dissolved carbon dioxide, the water becomes so aggressive that it acts as a solvent. It is capable of dissolving calcium carbonate alive, the main building material for shells and carapaces. It would seem that any crustacean descending here is doomed to lose its exoskeleton and dissolve, leaving behind only a soft, vulnerable body. That is precisely why most of them are not found deeper than 5,000 meters. But look at this creation of the abyss. This is Hirondelia gigas, a creature that evolved to survive in a chemical hell. Because the water tries to eat its carapace, it has transformed itself into a true knight in metallic armor. There is almost no aluminium in seawater, so this amphipod literally eats toxic bottom sediment. With the help of specific sugars obtained from the remains of dead vegetation falling from the surface, it extracts aluminium ions directly from the dirt inside its gut. From these ions, the creature synthesizes aluminium hydroxide gel and coats the entire surface of its body with it. This metallic gel creates a completely impermeable barrier. The water simply cannot reach the calcium carapace. It is the only creature known to science on the planet capable of extracting metal from dirt in order to forge itself armor against an ocean that is trying to digest it. Nature knows no mercy, but it knows efficiency. The abyss does not forgive weakness, and those who survive here cross the boundary of what we consider normal life long ago. We have always searched the bottom of the ocean for ancient monsters, leviathans and krakens hiding in the darkness. But the true horror of the abyss lies somewhere else entirely. At the very bottom, there are no monsters. There is almost no one there at all. The real monster is the ocean itself. At depths greater than 8,400 meters, it becomes an absolute, sterile chemical machine. It builds invisible walls that cannot be broken through. If you are a vertebrate creature, it will force your cells to overflow with trimethylamine N-oxide, or TMAO, until you reach an iso-osmotic state and disintegrate into cellular slime. If you have a calcium shell, the ocean will lower you below the carbonate compensation depth and dissolve your armor alive. It is not only biology that breaks here. It is our illusion that life is capable of overcoming everything. Evolution stops where the brutal mathematics of hydrostatic pressure and chemical disintegration begins. The ocean does not need fangs in order to kill. Simple physics is enough, and it is absolutely indifferent to whether we exist at all. If this descent has made you feel the cold pressure of the abyss, leave your mark. Like this video. It is the only way to break through the platform's algorithms, which, like the ocean, are merciless to those who remain unnoticed. Subscribe to the channel and press the bell. We will continue to dissect harsh science and show the true face of this planet. And before you return to the surface, write in the comments, what frightens you most? The giant monstrosities prowling through the darkness, or the realization that at the very bottom of the ocean, only cold, chemical emptiness is waiting for us. Until the next dive.